Ladies and gentlemen, I stand before you today to share something that we often overlook, something that's so critical for us to understand. And that's the concept of male weakness. Yes, I said it. Male weakness, not as an insult, but as an insight into the depths of what a man goes through. Men, despite how they may appear on the outside, often experience emotional vulnerability in ways that are not widely recognized. Society has for a long time expected men to be strong, stoic, and in control. But the truth is, many men carry emotional baggage just as much as anyone else. The difference is that men have, for various reasons, been conditioned not to express their emotions openly. The expectation to be emotionally invulnerable can often lead to internalized struggles that go unnoticed. Men, for the most part, have been raised with the notion that to show vulnerability is to show weakness. And this idea is ingrained deeply into their psyche. They've learned, sometimes from a very young age, that crying is something only women do. That crying is something only women do. That expressing fear or insecurity is something to be ashamed of. And that to be a man means to suppress their feelings and soldier on. In many ways, this cultural conditioning has made men more emotionally isolated, even within their closest relationships. The emotional vulnerability that every human experiences is something men often struggle to express. It's not that men don't feel deeply, it's that they have learned, whether consciously or unconsciously, to hide those feelings. In the pursuit of appearing strong and self-reliant, they internalize their emotions, often resulting in a kind of emotional suppression that can have negative consequences for their mental and emotional health. There's a certain vulnerability that men face in their daily lives, especially in their relationships. They are expected to be the providers, the protectors, the ones who take charge in difficult situations. They are expected to be emotionally strong and unshaken in times of crisis. Yet, when men are struggling with their own emotions, whether it's anxiety, sadness, fear, or stress, they often don't know how to share that with others. Society tells them that to ask for help or show emotion is a form of weakness. And so many men bottle up their feelings, try to navigate their struggles alone. This emotional vulnerability hidden beneath the surface can lead to men feeling disconnected from others, even from those they love the most. It's not unusual for a man to struggle with feelings of loneliness or isolation, even when surrounded by people. They may have trouble reaching out for support because of the fear that doing so will make them appear weak or inadequate. And so they keep their feelings to themselves, believing that if they ask for help, they will be judged or seen as less capable. For many men, their vulnerability is masked by their need to maintain control. The idea of being in control is central to how men are socialized to view themselves. From a young age, boys are often taught that real men don't show emotion. They control their emotions. They are taught to man up when facing difficult situations and to avoid showing any signs of weakness. This can create a conflict within them when they are faced with emotions that they feel they shouldn't have. They may feel shame or embarrassment at their inability to control their feelings, leading them to hide or suppress them even further. What's often overlooked is that this suppression of emotion doesn't make men stronger. In fact, it can have the opposite effect. Suppressed emotions can manifest in unhealthy ways, whether in the form of anger, frustration, or emotional withdrawal. A man who has been taught to suppress his feelings may struggle to communicate in a relationship, may feel distant from his partner, or may become overwhelmed by emotions he doesn't know how to handle. Instead of reaching out for support, he may isolate himself, not because he wants to, but because he doesn't know how to ask for help. Another important aspect of male emotional vulnerability is the expectation to be invulnerable in the face of hardship. Men are often conditioned to believe that they must always be strong, no matter the situation. If they are going through a tough time, whether it's a personal loss, a professional setback, or an emotional struggle, there's an expectation that they will simply cope with it without letting it affect their outward demeanor. When men do show their vulnerability, especially in moments of crisis, it can feel like a violation of this unspoken rule of masculinity. They may feel conflicted, wondering whether they should allow themselves to be vulnerable or whether they should continue the facade of strength, even if it means carrying that burden alone. This emotional vulnerability is not a weakness. It's a fundamental part of being human. But the social expectations placed on men often make it difficult for them to acknowledge and embrace this vulnerability. It's not that men don't feel, it's that they've been taught to suppress those feelings to avoid appearing weak. This emotional suppression can lead to unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as bottling up emotions until they erupt, or disengaging from relationships to avoid emotional exposure. The emotional struggles that many men face are real and they deserve to be acknowledged. Men are not robots. They are human beings who experience joy, sadness, fear, and pain just like anyone else. They need to be given the space to express these emotions without fear of judgment or ridicule. It's important for women, especially in relationships, to understand that the emotional vulnerability that men face is often hidden, and it may require patience and empathy to help them open up. When men are allowed to be vulnerable without fear of judgment, it creates the possibility for deeper emotional connections and more authentic relationships. In the end, emotional vulnerability is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of humanity. And the sooner we can recognize and embrace this truth, the healthier and stronger our relationships will be. Men often carry an intense desire for respect and validation, both from themselves and from others, especially from the people they care about most. This need for respect is woven deeply into the fabric of male identity, yet it's an area where men frequently struggle and suffer in silence. There is a societal expectation that men should be able to perform and excel in various areas of life without needing affirmation, that they should be inherently confident and self-sufficient. However, the truth is, just like women, men also yearn for acknowledgement. This need is not rooted in vanity, but in a desire to feel valued and seen for who they are and what they contribute. The respect that men seek is often not simply about admiration or praise, but rather a deeper sense of recognition that they are doing something worthwhile, that their efforts matter. It's tied to a need for their contributions to be appreciated in both their personal and professional lives. In relationships, this need for respect can be particularly pronounced. Men want to feel respected by their partners, whether that's in terms of their intelligence, their work ethic, or their role within the relationship. When a man feels disrespected, whether through criticism, neglect, or a lack of appreciation, it can deeply affect his self-esteem. This does not necessarily mean that men seek constant praise, but they want to feel that their efforts and presence are valued. When they don't get that, it can feel as though they are invisible or that they are not enough. This unspoken yearning for respect is often masked by pride or a reluctance to express these feelings openly. A man might not always tell you that he needs to feel respected, but his actions and behaviors may suggest otherwise. He might withdraw or become distant, not out of anger, but because of hurt. The absence of respect can be incredibly painful for men, often leading to frustration and confusion within relationships. Men may also feel that their value is tied to their ability to provide or succeed in specific roles. And when that value is questioned, it can trigger insecurity. They are taught from a young age to equate respect with success, particularly in professional or societal contexts. When men are not given the respect they feel they deserve, especially when they are working hard or making significant efforts, it creates a sense of failure. This can become even more complicated if men are also struggling internally with insecurities or doubts about their worth. The fear of not being respected often becomes a silent source of anxiety. The desire to earn respect can drive men to push themselves harder, often to their own detriment, thinking that more work, more accomplishments, or more status will prove their worth. This can sometimes lead to burnout or disillusionment, especially when respect doesn't come in the form they expected. Similarly, the lack of validation can be crushing. While validation may seem like something superficial or unnecessary to some, it is a deeply ingrained need in all human beings. For men, this validation may manifest in different ways, such as acknowledgement of their efforts, recognition of their sacrifices, or simply hearing words of affirmation. Men often feel that they must be the strong ones who support everyone else. And while they may give that support willingly, it can also be emotionally draining. When they are not validated in their struggles, it can lead to feelings of isolation and frustration. There is an expectation that men should always be the ones to fix things, whether it's problems at home or in their work lives. When they don't receive the same encouragement, they can feel depleted and unnoticed. They may not ask for validation because they've been conditioned not to, but it doesn't mean they don't need it. Unfortunately, this need for respect and validation is often overlooked, misunderstood, or ignored by those around them. Men are frequently expected to be the rock, the dependable one, the one who can handle anything without needing support. This notion of invulnerability means that many men do not feel comfortable expressing their need for recognition, even to those closest to them. It can be particularly difficult for men to vocalize their insecurities or ask for the validation they require because they fear it will make them seem weak. This fear of appearing vulnerable or dependent can make men seem emotionally distant, when in reality, they may just be waiting for the kind of recognition that they so desperately need, but have never been taught to ask for. In many cases, the issue is compounded by a disconnect between the way men express their need for respect and the way women or society perceive that need. Men may show that they need respect, not through words, but through actions. They may work tirelessly, be overly protective, or take on a variety of responsibilities in an attempt to prove their worth. When these efforts go unnoticed, it can create an emotional gap. A man may become frustrated because he feels as though his contributions are not appreciated, but he doesn't know how to communicate that frustration effectively. He may end up shutting down emotionally, withdrawing from those who are closest to him, This emotional withdrawal is often misinterpreted as indifference, when in reality, it's a response to feeling unseen or unheard. Men's need for respect and validation is not a fleeting desire, but rather a fundamental part of their emotional and psychological makeup. It is deeply tied to their sense of identity and self-worth. When that respect is given freely, when validation is offered, it can inspire men to be the best version of themselves, to be more engaged, more connected, and more confident. But when that respect is withheld, it can have the opposite effect. It can lead to feelings of inadequacy and frustration, which can manifest in a range of emotional and behavioral issues. Therefore, understanding and acknowledging men's need for respect and validation is crucial in building stronger, more fulfilling relationships and fostering a sense of emotional well-being. One of the most profound emotional struggles that many men face, often silently, is the fear of rejection. It is something that cuts to the core of their emotional well-being, though it is frequently overlooked or misunderstood by those around them. Rejection for men does not just refer to the rejection they might experience in romantic relationships, but it extends far beyond that. Men fear being rejected in many aspects of their lives, whether it's in their professional endeavors, their friendships, or their roles as fathers or partners. The fear of not being good enough, of being turned away or dismissed, can create an overwhelming sense of anxiety that men may not readily express. They may carry this fear internally, attempting to mask it with outward displays of confidence, strength, or independence. But the reality is that this fear is pervasive and often debilitating. At its core, this fear stems from a deep-seated need for acceptance and validation. Men, just like anyone else, have an intrinsic desire to be accepted and valued by others. This can manifest in different ways through their career accomplishments, their relationships, or their role within a social group. But what many men may not openly admit is that this fear of rejection can sometimes prevent them from taking risks or pursuing opportunities, because the thought of being rejected feels like a personal attack on their identity. They may fear that if they fail or if they aren't accepted, it will somehow mean they aren't good enough or that they will not measure up to others' expectation. This fear is often deeply rooted in childhood experiences and societal conditioning, where men are taught that success and external validation are what define their worth. When they experience rejection, it can feel like a blow to their sense of self. For many men, this fear of rejection can play out in relationships where they may be afraid of not meeting their partner's needs, of not being loved in return, or of facing emotional abandonment. In romantic relationships, the fear of rejection can be particularly acute because men often equate love with validation. They want to feel that they are worthy of affection, respect, and attention. When this need is not met, or when they perceive their partner's actions or words as dismissive, it can trigger deep insecurities and a fear of being left behind. This can manifest in behaviors such as emotional withdrawal, overcompensation in other areas, or excessive neediness, all of which stem from a deep fear that they are not enough. Men may internalize these feelings, not wanting to appear vulnerable or weak, and instead struggle with their emotions in silence, allowing the fear of rejection to persist unchecked. This fear of rejection also plays a significant role in how men approach failure. They may avoid putting themselves in situations where failure is a possibility because of the stigma associated with it. Failure is often perceived as a reflection of their personal inadequacy, and they fear that being seen as a failure will lead to rejection by their peers, colleagues, or loved ones. This fear can prevent men from taking on new challenges or from being as open and authentic as they could be in their relationships. They may struggle with self-doubt and anxiety, which can contribute to a lack of self-confidence and a reluctance to pursue their true passions or desires. Men may suppress these feelings in order to avoid showing vulnerability, thinking that by keeping their fears hidden, they can avoid the emotional pain of rejection. However, this only serves to deepen the cycle of fear and insecurity, preventing them from ever confronting or addressing the root cause of their anxieties. Another issue that arises from the fear of rejection is men struggle with communication, particularly when it comes to their emotional needs. Because of the pressure to maintain a facade of emotional strength and control, men may avoid discussing their vulnerabilities, fears, and insecurities. They may fear that by opening up, they will be rejected or dismissed, leading them to bottle up their emotion. This can create a significant barrier in relationships as their partners may not be aware of the emotional turmoil they are experiencing. Men, therefore, may often act out in ways that don't align with their true feelings, becoming distant, irritable, or withdrawing altogether because they are afraid of exposing their vulnerabilities. The fear of rejection can also manifest in their reluctance to ask for help or support, as doing so might be seen as a form of weakness, further reinforcing their belief that asking for help will lead to rejection. This fear of rejection, while not always obvious, is a fundamental aspect of the emotional struggles that many men face. It impacts their relationships, their self-esteem, and their overall sense of security. Men may not always verbalize these fears, but they are real and deeply affect how they navigate the world. By acknowledging the pervasive nature of this fear and understanding its impact, those who love and care for men, whether it be partners, friends, or family, can better support them in overcoming this fear. One of the most significant challenges that men face is the inability to effectively communicate their emotions. Communication, especially in the context of emotional expression, can be difficult for men due to the societal pressures placed on them from a young age. They are often taught that to be a man means to be stoic, strong, and self-sufficient. This creates an environment where emotional expression is not only discouraged, but can be seen as a sign of weakness. The expectation that men should suppress their feelings leads to a breakdown in communication, both within themselves and in their relationships. Men may struggle to articulate how they are feeling or may bottle up their emotions entirely, choosing to keep their struggles private rather than sharing them with others. The difficulty in expressing emotions often manifests in men's relationships with their partners. When a man is upset, hurt, or anxious, he may not have the tools or the language to express those feelings effectively. Instead of talking through his emotions, he may withdraw or shut down, which can be perceived by his partner as disinterest or apathy. In reality, he is likely experiencing an emotional conflict within himself unsure of how to articulate what he is going through. This inability to communicate emotions can create a sense of isolation, both for the man and for those around him. His partner may feel confused, frustrated, or disconnected, not understanding why he is not opening up. This can lead to misunderstandings, emotional distance, and even resentment. Men's difficulty with communication often stems from a combination of social conditioning and personal insecurity. From a young age, boys are taught to toughen up, to not show emotion, and to avoid vulnerability. This messaging is reinforced in many aspects of society, from family dynamics to media portrayals of masculinity. As a result, many men grow up internalizing the belief that emotional expression is inappropriate or shameful. This creates a deep-seated discomfort with vulnerability, making it even harder for men to open up about their feelings when they need to. This difficulty in expressing emotions can be particularly challenging in intimate relationships, where emotional connection and communication are key to building trust and intimacy. When men cannot express themselves emotionally, they risk losing that connection and feeling alienated from those they care about most. Men's struggle with communication is also tied to their fear of being misunderstood or judged. There is a belief, deeply ingrained in many men, that if they express emotions, they will be seen as weak or unmanly. As a result, they may withhold their feelings, believing that it is better to remain silent than to risk being judged or rejected. However, this only reinforces their emotional isolation and creates barriers to authentic communication. The longer this pattern continues, the harder it becomes for men to break free from it and learn how to communicate their feelings effectively. The pressure that men feel to provide and protect is an intense force that shapes many aspects of their lives. From a very young age, boys are taught that their role in society is to be the provider, to be the one who is responsible for ensuring the well-being of others, particularly their families. This message is reinforced in countless ways, through the examples set by fathers, through cultural narratives in the media, and even in the expectations set by schools and peer groups. Devote the idea of being a protector and a provider is so deeply ingrained in male identity that it becomes difficult for many men to see themselves outside of this framework. They feel that their worth is tied to their ability to succeed in these areas, and any failure to do so is often perceived as a personal shortcoming. The burden of this pressure can be overwhelming and lead to significant emotional and mental strain. The expectation to provide for others, whether financially, emotionally, or physically, often becomes a central focus in a man's life. Men are expected to excel in their careers, to be financially stable, to secure the future of their loved ones, and to be strong in the face of challenges. This can create a constant sense of urgency where men feel they must work harder and longer to meet these expectations, often at the expense of their own mental health and emotional well-being. When they struggle to meet these goals, whether due to financial hardship, career setbacks, or personal challenges, the resulting feelings of failure can be devastating. Men may feel that they are letting down their families, their communities, and themselves, which can lead to feelings of inadequacy and a fear of being seen as weak or incapable. Moreover, the societal narrative around providing and protecting can create a sense of isolation for men. Because they are taught to shoulder these responsibilities alone, many men may feel uncomfortable asking for help or expressing their struggles. There is a strong belief that a real man doesn't need help, that he should be self-sufficient and able to handle everything on his own. This can prevent men from reaching out for support, even when they need it the most. Instead of sharing their burdens, they often internalize them, leading to stress, anxiety, and a sense of loneliness. The fear of being perceived as inadequate or incapable can prevent men from being open about the challenges they face, whether in their personal lives or in their professional endeavors. This isolation can create a cycle where men feel increasingly overwhelmed and disconnected, unable to share their struggles with those around them. The pressure to provide also plays a significant role in men's relationships. Many men see themselves as the protectors and providers of their families, and they may feel that their worth in the relationship is based on their ability to provide for their partner and children. This can create tension if they feel they are not fulfilling this role to the best of their ability. They may fear that their partner will lose respect for them if they are unable to meet these expectations, leading to feelings of inadequacy or insecurity. Additionally, when men face challenges in their career or financial lives, these struggles can spill over into their personal relationships. They may become withdrawn or irritable, unable to communicate their feelings effectively, or they may try to overcompensate by taking on even more responsibilities in an effort to fix the situation. This can lead to misunderstandings and emotional distance between partners. The weight of their expectation to be the provider and protector can also lead to significant mental health issues for men. Men are less likely to seek help for mental health challenges, especially if they feel that doing so would make them appear weak or unable to cope with their responsibilities. As a result, many men suffer in silence, struggling with anxiety, depression, or other emotional issues without reaching out for support. The pressure to remain strong, to always appear composed and in control, can make it difficult for men to admit that they are struggling or need help. This reluctance to seek help can exacerbate their emotional pain and contribute to a sense of helplessness. For some men, the internalized pressure to provide and protect can lead to unhealthy coping mechanisms such as substance abuse, aggression, or emotional withdrawal. These behaviors often stem from the inability to express or process their feelings in a healthy way. The desire to protect and provide can also have a profound effect on a man's personal sense of identity. When a man's worth is tied solely to his ability to meet these expectations, it can be difficult for him to see his value outside of these roles. If he faces failure or hardship in any area of his life, it can feel like a direct attack on his identity. The inability to provide or protect, even temporarily, can create a sense of shame or humiliation. Men may feel as though their entire identity is wrapped up in their ability to fulfill these roles, and when they are unable to do so, they may feel lost or unsure of who they are. This struggle can create deep emotional turmoil, leading to feelings of worthlessness or confusion. The pressure to meet these expectations can also make it difficult for men to explore other aspects of their identity or to pursue interests and passions that do not align with the roles they feel they must fulfill. This narrow focus on providing and protecting can prevent men from fully embracing their individuality, leaving them feeling constrained and dissatisfied. This pressure is particularly challenging for younger men who are just beginning to navigate their roles in society and in relationships. The expectations placed on them can be daunting, especially when they are still figuring out who they are and what they want from life. The fear of not being able to provide or protect can lead to anxiety and self-doubt, making it difficult for them to pursue their dreams or take risks. The weight of these expectations can stifle their personal growth as they feel they must prioritize responsibility and duty over self-expression and exploration. In many cases, this pressure to provide and protect is further compounded by a lack of understanding from those around them. Partners, friends, and family may not fully grasp the emotional toll that this pressure takes on men. They may view men as being strong and self-sufficient, not realizing that the weight of these expectations can create immense stress. As a result, men may feel that they have to shoulder this burden alone, unable to share their feelings or express their struggles. This lack of emotional support can intensify the pressure, leaving men feeling trapped and overwhelmed. The expectation for men to be providers and protectors is deeply rooted in societal norms and expectations, and while these roles can be fulfilling, they can also be incredibly burdensome. The pressure to constantly meet these demands can create a cycle of stress, isolation, and emotional exhaustion. The inability to ask for help or express vulnerability often exacerbates these feelings, leaving many men to suffer in silence. It's important for both men and those around them to understand that seeking help, communicating struggles, and finding support are not signs of weakness, but of strength. Addressing the emotional challenges that come with the pressure to provide and protect is crucial for men's well-being, and understanding this dynamic is key to building healthier and more supportive relationships. One of the most pervasive struggles that many men face, often in silence, is the pressure to conform to rigid expectations of masculinity. From a young age, boys are taught certain ideals about what it means to be a man, ideas that often emphasize toughness, emotional restraint, independence, and a stoic approach to life. These ideals are deeply embedded in many cultures, reinforced by families, communities, and the media, and they create a powerful narrative that shapes how men see themselves and how they believe others expect them to behave. While these expectations may come from a place of traditional social conditioning, they have profound effects on men's emotional health, relationships, and overall sense of identity. The pressure to conform to these masculine ideals can be stifling, as it leaves little room for men to explore or express the full range of their emotions and desires. The first challenge is that many men are taught to suppress their emotions. From a very early age, boys are told that expressing vulnerability is a sign of weakness, and that real men do not cry, complain, or show fear. Instead, they are encouraged to be tough, to suck it up, and to push through difficult emotions on their own. This creates an environment where men feel that their emotional experiences are invalid or unworthy of attention. As a result, many men suppress their feelings of sadness, fear, and even joy, thinking that these emotions do not align with the masculine image they are meant to uphold. Unfortunately, this emotional suppression has significant consequences. Over time, bottling up emotions can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. Men who are taught to suppress their emotions often struggle with emotional intimacy in relationships, as they may not know how to express their feelings or be open about their emotional needs. This emotional distance can create barriers to forming meaningful connections with others, leading to feelings of isolation and loneliness. In addition to emotional suppression, There is also the expectation that men should be independent and self-reliant at all costs. Men are often taught that asking for help or seeking support is a sign of weakness, and they are encouraged to solve their problems on their own. This desire for independence can be empowering, but it can also create significant emotional and psychological strain when men find themselves in difficult situations. When men face challenges in their personal or professional lives, they may feel pressure to handle everything on their own without reaching out to others for support. This can lead to a sense of isolation as men struggle with their problems in silence. Furthermore, the pressure to remain self-sufficient can prevent men from forming deeper emotional connections with others, as they may be reluctant to share their struggles or vulnerabilities. This sense of emotional isolation can contribute to mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and burnout. By refusing to acknowledge that they need help, men can end up exacerbating their problems, further reinforcing the belief that they must face everything alone. Another significant aspect of the traditional masculine ideal is the emphasis on achievement and success. Men are often defined by their ability to excel in their careers, provide for their families, and attain status and power. Society often equates masculinity with success, and failure is seen as a personal failure of character. This can create immense pressure for men to constantly strive for success, regardless of the personal cost. Men who struggle with their careers, finances, or other aspects of their lives may feel inadequate or embarrassed, as they perceive themselves as falling short of societal expectations. This can lead to feelings of shame and guilt, which further complicate their emotional lives. Men may find themselves working long hours, sacrificing their personal well-being, and neglecting their relationships in an effort to achieve the success they believe is expected of them. This relentless pursuit of success can create a sense of disconnection from their true desires and passions, as they prioritize external achievements over personal fulfillment. The fear of failure and the desire to constantly prove their worth can lead to anxiety, burnout, and an overall sense of dissatisfaction with life. Men also often face the pressure to be dominant, both in their relationships and in their social circles. Traditional masculinity encourages men to be leaders, to assert their dominance, and to control situations. While some level of assertiveness is healthy, the pressure to dominate can lead to unhealthy dynamics in relationships and in society at large. In romantic relationships, for example, men may feel compelled to take charge of every situation, to make decisions for their partners, and to be the one who provides all the solutions. This can create an imbalance in relationships, as it undermines the value of partnership and mutual respect. It also prevents men from being able to express vulnerability or share emotional labor, as they may fear that showing vulnerability will undermine their authority or lead to rejection. Additionally, this pressure to dominate can foster toxic masculinity, where men feel entitled to control or manipulate others in order to maintain their sense of power. This not only harms the men themselves, but also negatively affects those around them, leading to unhealthy, imbalanced relationships. Finally, the pressure to conform to traditional masculine ideals often leads to a disconnection from one's true self, because men are taught to prioritize certain characteristics such as toughness, independence, and achievement over emotional expression, sensitivity, and vulnerability. They can lose sight of who they truly are. This disconnection from their authentic selves can lead to confusion, frustration, and dissatisfaction. Men may feel like they are living a life that is not aligned with their true desires or values, but they may not know how to break free from the rigid expectations placed on them. The internal conflict between societal expectations and personal desires can create a sense of internal tension where men feel like they are constantly trying to live up to an image that doesn't reflect who they truly are. This disconnection from their true selves can prevent men from pursuing passions, exploring different aspects of their identity, and finding meaningful fulfillment in life. It can also lead to a sense of disorientation, where men struggle to find purpose or direction in their lives. The societal pressure to conform to traditional ideals of masculinity can have a profound impact on men's emotional and psychological well-being. The expectation to suppress emotions, maintain independence, achieve success, dominate others, and conform to a specific image of manhood can create immense stress, anxiety, and feelings of inadequacy. Men who are unable to express their vulnerability or ask for help may suffer in silence, struggling with mental health issues, relationship difficulties, and a sense of isolation. The pressure to meet these expectations can also prevent men from fully embracing their authentic selves, leading to a disconnection from their true desires and passions. In order to break free from these limiting societal norms, it is essential for men to challenge these expectations and embrace a more holistic and inclusive understanding of masculinity, one that values emotional expression, vulnerability, and authentic self-awareness. Only then can men begin to live more fulfilling and connected lives. The fear of emotional vulnerability is a powerful force in many men's lives. From a young age, men are taught that showing vulnerability is a weakness, an undesirable trait that can lead to ridicule or loss of respect. They are often encouraged to toughen up and to man up when facing challenges, which reinforces the idea that emotions such as sadness, fear, or hurt are not meant to be expressed openly. This cultural conditioning creates a wall around men's emotional lives, making it difficult for them to communicate their feelings or be open about their struggles. As a result, many men go through life hiding their emotions, bottling them up, and suppressing their feelings, which can lead to severe psychological and emotional consequences. The inability to express vulnerability can prevent men from forming deep emotional connections with others, particularly in romantic relationships, where intimacy and openness are essential. Furthermore, this emotional repression often results in stress, anxiety, depression, and an overall sense of isolation as men struggle to navigate their emotions alone. The societal expectation to maintain a stoic and unemotional exterior causes many men to internalize their emotions, which prevents them from receiving the emotional support they need to heal and grow. The expectation to be constantly strong and resilient is another burden that men carry. Society often glorifies the image of the tough man, one who is capable of handling any challenge without flinching. This expectation can be incredibly exhausting, especially when men are faced with difficulties that they are ill-equipped to handle on their own. The pressure to remain strong all the time means that men may suppress their need for help even when they are overwhelmed. It also discourages them from seeking support or reaching out to others when they are struggling emotionally or mentally. When men feel that they must always appear strong, they are less likely to share their vulnerabilities or seek assistance during times of hardship. This creates a cycle of emotional isolation where men feel unable to ask for help and increasingly distant from those around them. Need to appear invulnerable can also contribute to unhealthy coping mechanisms such as excessive work, substance abuse, or emotional withdrawal as men try to manage their feelings alone. Over time, this relentless pursuit of strength can lead to burnout, emotional fatigue, and a profound sense of loneliness as men realize they have no one to lean on during their most difficult moments. Along with the pressure to remain strong comes the societal expectation for men to succeed and provide for others. Many men are taught that their worth is defined by their ability to achieve success in their careers, maintain financial stability, and provide for their families. This idea of success is ingrained in them from childhood, reinforced by parental expectations, societal norms, and cultural narratives about what it means to be a man. The emphasis on success can be a driving force, motivating men to work hard, climb the career ladder, and ensure their families have everything they need. Additionally, the fear of failure can prevent men from taking risks or pursuing their true passions as they become overly focused on achieving traditional notions of success. The societal pressure to be successful can stifle men's authentic desires and create an internal conflict between their goals and their personal fulfillment. The desire to be dominant, particularly in relationships, is another key component of traditional masculinity. Many men are taught that they should be the dominant partner in their relationships, decisive, assertive, and in control. This expectation can create tension in relationships as it often leads to an imbalance of power and prevents the development of true partnership. The pressure to dominate can also discourage men from expressing vulnerability or showing emotional softness, as they fear it will undermine their authority. In romantic relationships, this desire to be dominant can manifest in controlling behaviors, where men attempt to dictate the actions or decisions of their partner. This not only creates power struggles, but also hinders emotional connection and intimacy. Men who feel they must always assert their dominance may struggle to be emotionally open, as they believe doing so would make them appear weak or unworthy of respect. This dynamic can lead to emotional distance, where both partners feel disconnected and unable to communicate their feelings authentically. The inability to relinquish control or share emotional labor can create a sense of frustration and dissatisfaction in the relationship, as both partners feel that their emotional needs are not being met. Men also face significant pressure to adhere to certain physical ideals, which can affect their self-esteem and body image. In many cultures, men are encouraged to have a muscular, lean physique, one that reflects strength and masculinity. This ideal is reinforced by the media, advertisements, and even peer pressure, creating unrealistic standards of what a man's body should look like. For many men, this can lead to body dissatisfaction and an unhealthy obsession with their appearance. They may spend hours at the gym, diet obsessively, or use supplements and steroids in an attempt to conform to these physical ideals. While maintaining physical health is important, the pressure to conform to these standards can lead to unhealthy behaviors and a distorted view of one's body. Men who feel that they do not meet these physical ideals may experience low self-esteem and body dysmorphia, which can negatively affect their mental health and overall well-being. Additionally, The pressure to look a certain way can make men feel as though their value is solely based on their appearance rather than their internal qualities or character. This creates a superficial focus on physicality, which can prevent men from embracing their unique qualities and developing a positive sense of self-worth. The final aspect of the struggle men face is the disconnection from their emotions and their inability to communicate openly about their feelings. Many men grow up learning that emotions should be controlled and that vulnerability is something to avoid. This often leads to an inability to express themselves emotionally, either to themselves or to others. When men feel sadness, anger, or frustration, they may struggle to articulate these emotions, leading to internalized pain and confusion. This emotional disconnection can make it difficult for men to form close, authentic relationships, as they may feel that they are unable to fully engage with others on an emotional level. In romantic relationships, this lack of emotional expression can create misunderstandings, as partners may feel that their needs are not being met or that they are being emotionally neglected. Over time, this disconnection can erode trust and intimacy, leading to dissatisfaction and emotional withdrawal. The inability to communicate one's emotions effectively can also contribute to feelings of loneliness, as men may feel that they are carrying emotional burdens alone without the support or understanding of others. This inability to share feelings is a fundamental barrier to emotional health and can prevent men from living fully connected and authentic lives. These various pressures: emotional suppression, the need to appear strong, the fear of failure, the desire for dominance, body image concerns, and emotional disconnection combine to create a heavy burden for many men. The societal expectations placed on them to conform to rigid ideas of masculinity often lead to feelings of isolation, inadequacy, and mental health struggles. It's crucial that we challenge these traditional notions of masculinity and create space for men to express their vulnerabilities, seek support, and embrace their authentic selves. Only through breaking free from these limiting expectations can men begin to lead healthier, more fulfilling lives.